Looks like you lost another one.
Welcome to this episode of the Elite Question Askers. We're going to keep it just like that. I'm going to laugh because that's how we was laughing when we press record. So I am Jayson Wells.
I am Mo Williams.
And I am Dedrick Taylor.
I'm jumping straight into the show, fellas. We got no time to waste. What's your fist bump moments?
I think yours is the best, so why don't we start with you?
Yeah, might as well stay with the theme, Jay. Get straight to it.
Well, at the hands of my two amazingly awesome co-hosts, I will go first. So my fist bump moment, and we're laughing at it now, but both of these dudes, one more than the other, was extremely concerned about my well-being. But for in real talk, my fist bump moment is I had my first colonoscopy, my 45 colonoscopy yesterday per recording. And before we get our laughs out, I'll get serious instead of trying to do it the other way around. There was a lot of, it's funny, I was explaining this to T earlier. Fear is the only word that I can use, but it I don't know if that's the right word. Like, it's a real case of, for lack of a better term, uncertainty for sure. And a lot of it was just stemmed around the conversation that I had with my dad per his experience. And verbatim, as clear as day, I remember him saying, don't ever have a colonoscopy.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And here we go. I feel like the story is tied into this. My dad passed of colon cancer.
Mm.
And I feel like just knowing him, he's the type of dude that probably was sick way longer than you know what I mean, than he ever looked it or showed it or whatever. And by the time he finally mustered up enough whatever or got sick enough to do whatever to have a colonoscopy, the colonoscopy revealed you probably should have been in here a long time ago. Mm. And so he blames it on the colonoscopy, you feel what I'm saying, as opposed to I probably had to, you know what I mean? It's that type. And I will go as far as to say, and fellas, again, we started this thing off laughing and we probably gonna laugh some more, but like us men, especially Black men, me, myself, without giving up too much information, like shit, it was some stuff in there that ain't there no more that if gone undetected could have been something I don't want it to be. You feel me? And so, yeah, man, my fist bump moment is doing that and doing that proactively. And now the real fist bump part of it is I get to now have conversations with my sons that I didn't have with my dad in a different light about this stuff. Like I told Jalen yesterday, look, man, your grandfather had this. And so they ask you your grandfather back. So when they ask you this question, you're going to have to say yes to that. You know what I mean? And stuff might look different from you until we get to a point where it ain't that. And so anyway, I never had that conversation with my dad, man. So I appreciate y'all laughing first and then listening. But yeah, it was a lot to that moment.
That's a powerful moment from a, you know, we pass these things down, right? We always pass things down from generation to generation. And I don't know that we always pass down the medical piece and how important it is, even for the simple fact of you just told Jaden or Jalen?
Jalen.
You just told Jalen, hey, you're going to have to fill out some information as you get older. You need to know that your grandfather passed from this.
Yeah.
From an educational standpoint, I think that's invaluable for the next generation beneath us to hear, to learn, to educate themselves about their past, about their history, so that hopefully it doesn't repeat itself. At least you know it's in your track record.
Sure. Yeah, that part. I appreciate that too.
What he said.
Appreciate
What he said.
that. What you got? Fist bump moments. Here we go.
Come on, Mo, man. Like, what are you doing, brother?
I think that's gonna be like the new thing on the show. We're gonna hold off until you actually say it. Come on, Mo. Or
Yeah.
some rendition of it.
I feel like it's turned into its own segment. We had a stare off going for about six seconds there.
It is.
I'll go, man. My fist bump moment is I'm taking your word, Jay, and I'm giving you credit because we were on a session with you earlier today and you used this word, but practice. I've been tasked during this season of my life to practice more than ever before. And, you know, where I've been taxed to practice in this season of life is literally handling adversity, handling conflict, like handling tough conversations. And, you know, what that's kind of looked like, man, I'm giving you credit because you talked to our team about this. Not only have we been talking about it, but we've been using it, but that acronym of PNC. And I think you talked about it the last episode, like pause, notice, choose. Like I've been pausing a lot. You know, I've been noticing that I feel really emotional right now. And then choosing the behavior or the response that I want. You know, like one most recently before I got on this call with you, like I was really, really tired of being a dad earlier tonight. And it got to a point where I just kind of like tapped out. And to show you how cool my daughter is, and I guess the environment that we have here, and she probably hugged me like 8 times. Like, just come here. Like, just come here. And it was like to a point where like I kind of got emotional because it was like, man, you know, you at this younger age understanding that that's a nurturing moment opposed to laughing or kicking or pointing at me. It was just special, you know. It made me realize that we're doing not just something right, but we're doing things right. But yeah, man, just being taxed with this during this season of practicing, man, just constantly practicing. And I don't enjoy when it comes up, but I do enjoy now being armed with the tools to use when it comes up. So that's my fist bump moment.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I hope you sat in the emotion of when your daughter hugged you.
I did.
Because that is super, super powerful.
I did.
Super powerful. That's awesome.
Can we talk about that face you made when Mo said we had a session with you today? You made a face like somebody had cheated on with your woman, man. Yeah, you.
Me or him?
You, DT.
I didn't even know you made a face.
I didn't either.
Yeah, when you said we had a session with, maybe it was another screen or I don't know, but you when he said we had a session with Jay, you kind of just like you've been talking to Jay. Okay,
it's probably a natural response. You know, there is a part of me that is selfish. So
okay, we can talk about that in a minute. Okay, next, go ahead, DT.
Man, since we still in each other's word, I have been introduced to Mo's word boundaries on another level. I just think it has come full circle in terms of I've been hearing him say it since January, and we're now in April, and again, it just carries a different meaning. And Mo shared a book with me that I started reading here the last 2 days, I think, and just noticing different things in my life that are present, I think, in this book. And Mo talked about giving him tools. I think this book hopefully will give me some tools to maybe set some boundaries. And what I've noticed is there is a need for some boundaries to be set to protect myself, to protect other people. And when I say protect, I don't mean from a physical, like, you know, this standpoint. I mean from a physical, emotional duress, you know, all of that stuff, you know, just trying to stay positive or stay neutral, or to use the acronym, I think it's PNC, pause, notice, and then choose what emotion or how you want to respond. in my own way, not maybe so much, but in my own way, trying to be better in that particular area.
So both of you mentioned it in various ways, and I this is exactly where I wanted to go. So Mo, you mentioned conflict, and D, you brought up boundaries. Obviously, we spoke about boundaries last episode in the whole episode, and I think that we're at a point to where we can blend those a little bit. Even being introduced to the book, D, I think is super cool for you to be at this point. I think the more I hear that word boundaries, the more it's one of those words that when you hear it, you automatically kind of get defensive, and it's got this negative connotation to it, like boundaries, you know what I mean? Like, and they're not that. They are not that at all.
Yeah, no, I think really quick, when you think of boundaries, you automatically get defensive because you think of things that are meant to keep you in, to maybe insulate you and keep you from going to another area. And I don't know that I think if you explore the meaning of boundaries, I think it definitely can give you a different perspective.
So, and then Mo, you mentioned conflict, kind of tying this all in together. Actually, I'm gonna throw a lob to you because you brought this up. In what dynamic would you like to start on that topic of conflict? Of like, how does that look? Is that is it a certain situation, a certain relationship? But how does that look for you?
Well, they defining conflict. I think it's the first part. The first part of it is it's when two opinions, because that's what they are. They're opinions, don't meet in the same direction. So they're constantly doing this. And that's where conflict starts to occur, because if it stayed here, it would never be conflict because they wouldn't know. But it's when that information is transferred and it passes each other opposed to meeting. That's where I think conflict arises. And my curiosity with that is just, what does that look like for each of us? Like, how do we handle those moments? I think we talked a little bit about it last episode in a way, but yeah, that was kind of the root of where my curiosity came from, and asking that question to you guys and thinking could be good content to share with others.
D, where you want to go? You want to start? Want me to start? You don't want to start? I thought, conflict. I thought that was your joint.
Conflict to me means going 0 to 10. I'm ready to fight. Like, what do you want to talk about?
So is that what it looked like for you? Is that what it looked like for you? For real?
No. I think what it looks like for me is exactly how Mo so eloquently described it. It's when two opinions don't look the same, and you can't share the same perspective. You can't share the same space with your perspective. That causes conflict, and that conflict can drive a wedge between a relationship. It can make a tough situation difficult. It can make an easy situation difficult because, again, two opinions are being shared and they don't look alike.
So I'm gonna follow this up with a question. Mo, I think we're all in the same boat. I think for me, it does depend on relationships sometimes. And I'm thinking specifically a work situation. I think I will find myself having more patience than I would a personal situation. In layman's terms, I probably got a shorter fuse or a shorter wick with the people that I have closer relationships with, which don't make me feel good saying it. And I think it's kind of natural for everybody. Like, I think that's, we say the whole commit to the cliche. One of the biggest cliches out there is, we hurt the people closest to us. So yeah, and just me and my ridiculous obsession with learning myself, I crave those moments of feedback where whether it's with T or whether it's with a friend or whether it's with my mom or whatever, I crave for those feedback moments of, yo, this is how I experienced this situation. And having that be an opportunity to see how I could do that differently, because many times it don't line up with my intentions. Like, that ain't what I meant to do. And if that's how you felt and that ain't what I meant to do, what can I do to do that differently next time? If that ain't what I meant to do. So yeah, that's the first part. Anybody go ahead.
Yeah, if I can piggyback off of what you just said in terms of right there is a conflict, and even amongst yourself, because most people don't necessarily rely or look forward to that feedback to help themselves learn themselves. They look forward to that feedback so that they can be right. That's one area that I'm trying to be better in. It's not about trying to be right. It's more so, how can we be productive? And I just think that those are two different connotations in terms of how you receive information and how you give information out from the space that you're operating from your perspective. Again, this word perspective seems to be the theme of the night for me, but I really, really think that that's important. The intent behind your perspective. It drives a lot of situations, at least situations that I've been in.
Mo, anything? I got a question if you don't.
Then the only thing I could add, and I read this the other day, but the first finger to point with when you're faced with conflict is not your index finger, it's your thumb. It's your thumb. And I thought that was fire, because ultimately what you were hitting on, D, like, are you trying to be right? Or are you really trying to make peace of this situation? And if we're going back to that book that you and I were talking about, our ultimate goal in life, again, put any platform in it, whether it's a job, sports, money, is you want peace. You want more money, not because, man, I could go buy that, and that. You want more money because you want financial peace. And you want the bigger house because you might think that material, that space gives you peace. But peace is the root of what we want. But I think we cannot ever get that peace until the finger that when we face conflict is not the index finger, but it's really that thumb. That thumb pointing back at us. Can we continue to do that opposed to just pointing at other people? And I think that's how you have to first approach conflict, which is an area where I really struggle, but, starting to understand more and more that it's myself. It starts with myself first. It doesn't have to get to that point unless I allow it to be. That's that choice.
Mo, you talked about not wanting to win, but wanting to, and not even wanting to understand. I think that was a heck of a challenge, that because you hear that as well. You get to the point where you don't try to win, you just try to understand. And I thought it was gold the way you said, like, it ain't even understand, because even that leaves a lane of confusion, a lane of, I don't understand that. I don't understand why you would think like that. So
right.
Why expend energy? And I think both of you said it in productive ways, and that was the word that you used, D. So Mo, you said peace, and D, you said productive. And I think both of those can be, depending on the environment, very applicable words. Like if I'm in the work environment, if you coaching, I don't necessarily want peace, but we do need to be productive. And if I'm at home, and not saying that peace can't happen on the court, but I think both of those words show up in those spaces really well. But that piece that you mentioned, Mo, about, not even understanding, I think that's next level, because if I'm not trying to win and then I go to understand, but then if I not even try to understand, but just how do we get to peace and productivity, that's next level.
Yep.
Is conflict and confrontation the same thing?
I say no. Again, I think conflict is again, going back to what I was showing you guys before, the passing of two opinions. So they're not meeting, they're passing. And I think confrontation is the act while they're passing. the act as far as these the two people coming together, or the two people coming together, or like, what does that look like? Is it going to be confrontation in a sense of, verbally? Could that confrontation be, I mean, you can confront somebody over the phone as well too, or through text. But I think it's the act. Wow, these two differences of opinions. I think that's what confrontation looks like to me, where I think conflict is just the differences of opinions.
D, what you got?
Yeah, I would totally agree. Conflict is what causes the emotion. Confrontation is the act of, let's get it on. Let's figure this thing out.
Mo, I think you've seen this. D, I don't think we've gotten here yet with your team, but I got this activity where I'm asking the same question, just reverse, and it's speaking about feedback, specific to, it's some coaching feedback, some critical feedback. If you are giving feedback in that type of manner, it's some critical coaching feedback. How would you most likely show up from a personality standpoint? Are you like super caring? Are you super like overpowering? Are you apathetic? Like, how does that show up? Like, I'm gonna tell you like it is, straight like it is. I'm gonna beat around the bush. I just don't give a shit. Like what? Man, every week I check. Is this made for kids? No. Every week.
Clearly.
Every. Where you at? How do you give feedback like that? How do you show up?
I think I tried to approach it from being super sensitive and coming across caring, because at the end of the day, I want them to be able to use the information that I give them from my perspective, but I want them to be able to use it. I don't want them to be able to walk out. I don't want them to walk out and dismiss the information. I want them to be able to make it productive. So I try to be, but oftentimes, when you have that approach, it can be misconstrued and they cannot necessarily hear the directness. And so oftentimes you do have to, or at least I do have to, come back around and be a lot more direct, with what I'm saying in my approach. I think over the course of time, particularly with our team or with my team, early in the year, I'll maybe try to be a little more sensitive and not as direct. But by the middle, towards the end of the year, I'm direct. I'm like, hey, take this for whatever it's worth, and let's be productive with it.
Gotcha. Mo?
Yeah, man, I heard LeBron, a guy that's a part of LeBron's team, Maverick Carter, say this, and I thought it was gold. But just talking about progress over pride, like progress over pride. And I think where I try to, kind of similar to what D said, like, it's about us being productive. It's about us having progress. It's not about your pride. And I think we try to find initially, like I was talking to D about this earlier, in that process of finding these guys before we select them to come here, it's really important to me to ask questions and to find out information on if they've died to self. And I think being under recruited, I think maybe going somewhere else, I think a traumatic experience, which is something I try to find out in that process, forces you to die to self. But I've just come to realize, for me, when I'm working with student athletes, like if they haven't come to that sense yet where they've gone through something really hard, it doesn't matter how much of a relationship you have with them. Like if you come at them and they don't receive it, they're going to push back. And it's funny because I think this age group talks in a lot of different ways of slang of being honest, whether it's keeping it real, whether it's keeping it 100, whether it's keeping it a buck, but they don't want that. Like all of them don't necessarily want that. Or if they do, they want it to be in a certain way. So I think for me, it's as best as we can, making sure they die to self. And sometimes that happens with us. You know, it could have been a challenging, man, I didn't play that much this year. You know, you know one of my guys that's had that kind of experience. And I mean, he's elite, in my opinion, at listening and receiving information, whether it's really direct and you're coming at him, or it's, you know, you pull them to the side and loving them. You know, but I think it's all about knowing them. And that's where that directness from me looks different for each of them, because it all depends on how do they receive information, what they need from me.
Man, y'all dudes are so intelligent. Flip side of that, how would you like to receive coaching critical, constructive feedback? Tell you like it is, sugar-coated, be apathetic, combination, what you got?
For me, I would prefer punch me in the face. Be as direct as you can be, not as direct as you need to be. Be as direct as you can be. I don't care if you feel like it's hurting my feelings, because I can't necessarily play the mental gymnastics with your words or with the environment, or however you want to say it. You know, like, just be direct. Just tell me what you think, how you feel, whatever it is. But I covet that feedback, and I covet it that type of way. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell me, just punch me right in the face.
I crave the same thing. The only thing I would add is tell me up front what you expect of me. You know, you've heard me say this, Jay, like, to me, expectations that are not clear lead to chaos. So everyone has expectations. Like, I have expectations of you guys. I do. But I feel that those are clear, which is why we don't have a chaotic relationship. Like, if we didn't have an expectation to show up on this at a certain time, this wouldn't work very well. Because he'd be coming in at a random time, and I come in at a different time, and you sitting there waiting for both of us, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. But I would say I relate to what he said, but what I would add is be clear with me on what the expectations are, or how I'm being evaluated. Because that's where I thrive, is if I know exactly what the expectation is, or how I'm being evaluated. Not what I want, not what you want me to hear, but what do you expect?
I think there are some other variables in this as well. D, you at a high level mentioned time and environment. Like, there's certain times to be having these conversations and certain times not to, depending on what what this conversation is. You know, I don't think sitting at the family holiday table is the time to be talking about how I ain't satisfied with the amount of sex I'm getting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's timing behind it. And we laugh at these things, but I just saw a show just yesterday, and this is kind of even where I wanted to go. I'm at my dude's crib, and him and his wife was watching some form of reality TV, which is just so not
Real?
Not my, yeah, that's what I call it, is unreality TV. But whatever the show is, it's a younger couple, it's a dude, it's a girl, they're beefing, and she go through his phone, all it is, he gets salty, he dips. They stay together, he dip that night, like whatever it is, late at night. He don't come back. She tossing and turning the next morning. She called her homegirl come through, and now they talking shit about the dude, and he should have came home, blah, you should have not went through his phone. Like, let's talk about that. But that's a whole nother episode. He walks in, the homegirl leaves, he laying there across the bed, the girl is laying on the bed, and she wants to talk about it right now. And he's like, I ain't in the space to, I don't really want to do this right now. And she's salty. How do we handle that? One person want to do it right now, the next person need a little bit of time. First off, who are you? Are you let me be a minute, or we finna handle this right here, right now? Who are you first?
I need a moment.
Pun intended.
Dee. Nah, I want to handle situations right then and there, just in the moment, because the emotions of that situation are important, but the communication is the most important. And I want to come to some type of, again, I want to be productive in that space. Yes, that space is going to exist. It's going to occur. Not only did it occur then, but it's going to occur around some other issue, and it's going to happen. I'd rather talk about it as opposed to, let it be a looming effect or looming factor in how we interact. We might go out and do so and so, but yet and still, that's still looming. And so it changes the way you're able to interact. In my opinion, I think I would rather, let's just talk about it right now and get it over with. And whatever it means, it is what it is. Whose notifications are those?
Look.
I know whose they're not, but I don't know whose they are.
Message. Oh man, I'll take this because it actually shows up in real time for me. So I want to talk about it. My wife is, I need time. And I think for us starting out, that was very challenging, where I think we've grown. You guys already said it. It's communication. Understanding when conflict hits for me, if we don't talk about it, my experience is I feel that I don't know, something deeper than that. Like you're gonna go to something else, opposed to hitting it head on. Where for her, people like that break is just them being able to come down from those emotions. I can't speak right now. Like I don't even know what to say. My feelings are so high, I don't even know what to say. So I think the next word that none of you guys have said yet is compromise. It's compromise. It's understanding, okay, this is what I need. This is how I show up in that situation. And this is how you show up in that situation. What can we do so that we both can show up in the situations the way we need to, by not just, hey, I'm going out and you just stay here. And I think for us, it's just communicating. So, hey, I'm not ready to talk about it right now. So that tells me, okay, we're good. You at least said something to me so I know where you are. And it gives you the space that you need to go do what you need to do. And, I think that's really the root of it, is those two words, that compromise and that communication.
I think just piggybacking off of what you said, Mo, I got a thing in my phone in terms of I keep all these different quotes. And a friend of mine, we used to work together. He said this. He said, negative always fills the void of communication. And to me, like that, just like, again, it's wrong. And it speaks volumes from a standpoint of when you get into an argument or you come home and your wife don't say nothing, automatically you just go negative. Dang, what did I do? What did I say? What did I forget? You're not gonna be, oh, she didn't say nothing to me? Yeah. Maybe there are some guys out there like that. But you know what I'm saying? Like if somebody doesn't address you, and I do it all the time, like even just simple interaction, like when I'm walking in the morning or I'm walking by someone, like my dad always told, hey, don't ever walk by another person and not acknowledge it. Don't ever do that. And so I try to do that, but when people don't acknowledge me back, I go negative. I automatically change my high into another one. You know what I'm saying?
We know what you're saying.
So
we know.
I think negative, when nothing is being said, people always, in my opinion, they're what's the word I'm looking for? Their fallback is you can't help but to be negative. You automatically, something's wrong.
That's powerful. I too have heard and use a version of that. And yeah, lack of communication is always perceived as negative. Like you don't never walk into the crib and don't nobody speak and be like, yes, we great right now. That ain't it.
And I'll go real quick a step further, like, you know, especially in a relationship where you're serious or married, whatever that looks like for you, like not going to bed angry, you know, like establish that boundary that that's not what we're going to do. So maybe you're not ready to talk about that right now, but that's where we're not going to be in unity.
So Mo, I'm gonna cut you off right here on purpose and ask you a question about compromise, because as you brought that word up,
Mhm.
if you say we're not gonna go to bed mad, and that's where you are, but she's not like that, where's the compromise for her? Because it sounds like she ain't gonna be going to bed mad because that ain't what you want to do. But what about what she want to do?
Yeah, again, I'm saying like with a person like that, the compromise is you can't just you just can't disconnect and distance yourself. So like your communication doesn't have to be about the issue, but it does need to reiterate that this is where I'm at, this is where I'm feeling, not leaving me out in the dark. That's more what I mean, like,
Gotcha.
you know, when it comes to that piece.
And I guess I was looking sort of, because that's where I was going to go with compromise anyway. So I share, compromise, something silly as putting the toilet seat down. I'm a notorious, like, I'm not like, I will maybe leave the toilet seat up once every 2 years. That just ain't something I do. However, it's been done. But she wants the toilet seat down. We forget to put the toilet seat down. The compromise is either for her, she got to deal with the toilet seat not being down. Because if I forget, where is that? I feel like when it comes to compromise, I feel like more times than not, people don't compromise. Somebody just sacrifice and end up going the other way. You don't want me to smack, I just won't chew, like that type shit, stupid shit. Like, no, I didn't say don't chew. I just asked you not to smack. Shit. No, my bad. It got real quick.
It's okay. It sounds like you actually been through that.
That's not. Yeah. Been there. But you get what I'm saying? Like, where's the compromise to compromise?
I mean, again, I'll just share my experience. I think where people mess up when it comes to that word, and I'm feeling like we're heading this direction of like relationships, like a marriage or someone really serious. It's thinking that it's going to be even. Like, so I did this, I should be thinking that. Like, you will never have a successful relationship if you're keeping score. The reality is, like, as men, we were built to take on more. Like, I love my pastor used to say this, like, Phil Jackson wasn't looking at Dennis Rodman to take the last shot. He's looking at Jordan. And in your relationship, in that space, you are Jordan. So you're literally getting upset because you're being put in this situation where you're taxed to take that shot or be your best in this pressurized situation, and you keep passing it up. It's not fair. Well, yeah, it's not going to be fair. That's not what those types of relationships are about. And I think it all goes back to, we love using the word service or being a servant till we're treated like a servant. Like a servant doesn't hear, thank you. A servant doesn't hear, I'm really grateful for you. A servant is that image. Jay, you said this earlier with our team, kind of jokingly, but it is that image of what it says in the Bible of washing feet. It is that. And like, if you can't, I don't want to use the word humble, because I know we have a challenge with that, but if you can't minimize your pride to be in that image, to wash those people that you say you care about's feet, then you're always going to be trying to keep score of a game that you'll never win, because it's not supposed to be even. It ain't, like, to your point, it's never going to be, well, I do this, you should be doing that. It's never going to equal out that way, in my opinion.
Mr. Taylor? Man, he dropped the mic for real. He put that thing on mute on that. Why?
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing to say after that. Like zero, zilch, settle, nothing.
All right. Tell me where you're at with this visual. You guys, I feel like we got PNC out of last week. So if you consistently work on this line, this straight line of A and B, I'm here, you there, and just going back and forth, then it becomes that tug of war. Either I'm closer to me or I'm closer to you. If we're just working on that line of A and B, but then if you can imagine, and obviously you guys can see me, but people that's on, if A and B are in a straight line from each other, and then I go up from there and create this triangle image, it allows me, that shape allows me to get out of the bilateral of A and B, and now we get to not you, not me, but us, which is at the top of that triangle. And that's another visual that I use a lot. And when people see it, it's often an OIC moment for real. Because you see A and B creating the base of what will eventually be a triangle, but then you put point C up there and let's get out of you, let's get out of me, and what's best for us. And I think that's another one of those things that's so applicable. If we just get out of A and B and what's us in a whole bunch of civic world events, we as a people would be in a different place. But it's so much easier to go A and B because I can be right and you can be wrong, and that feel better than pausing, noticing, and choosing what's best for us as opposed to anything opposite. So that's my toolbox moment. What y'all got?
Yeah, I mean, just piggybacking off of what you said, I mean, some people, there's a faction of people that get off on being right versus being wrong. Like that fuels them. They're driven by that. It's just like the whole thing with some of these elitist universities. Like, and I'm not going to say their names, but there's certain schools that they develop their I don't know, their motive. They for lack of a better word, they get off on excluding who they excluded. And then there's another faction of universities that they are more inclusive, and they're excited about that. And so I think it's the same thing with you. It's to me, I think even speaking for all of us, it's never about me versus you. It's always about us. How can we be productive? And I think that's the way that we look at things. That's the way that we look at a lot of things in terms of a relationship, you know, whether it's you with your players, whether it's with the others, you know, with your spouse, financially, it's always, it's that diagram and that thing in terms of us being productive. And, but I think there's a flip side to that of a certain faction of people, they don't look at it that way, and they won't look at it that way. And I think, again, going back to us, we are okay with those people. Like, that's cool. Just for me, don't bring it around here, because I don't agree with that. I don't believe in that. I respect it, but I don't rock with that.
Mo Will.
Yeah, and I would say just hitting on this from a professional standpoint. What does this look like professionally? You know, you could waste so much energy trying to understand, trying to keep score to what you have or what you don't have. But with sharing this with DT earlier this morning on our call was like, you know, you can't major on a minor. Like you can't put energy into things that you can't control. You know, you trying to fight your supervisor on what you think you should be getting or how they're treating you. That battle you're not going to win. You know, and I say the word majoring over a minor because you're putting major energy into a minor situation. You know, it might feel major when in reality, you know, what's major if you're a coach is your players. How do they feel? you know, you can control that. How do they feel? How are they being coached by you? You know, you can control those things. But when it comes to that side of it, you really don't have control over that. You know, I always say when people show you who they are in that space, just believe them. You know, there is no surprises anymore because you've shown me who you are. You know, it'd be like us playing cards. If I see the hand of your cards, I'm not surprised on what you throw down because I've already seen what it is. So now I know what I need to throw down to play offense or to play defense.
I got one more twist to this thing. Sarcasm. I know that I got a smart ass mouth. I know it. I know it. Sometimes I use it for the good, for the powers of good. Sometimes I use it for the powers of evil. However,
is there any good? Is there any good thing with sarcasm?
Yeah, I think sarcasm can ease tension sometimes.
I can see that.
If it's understood or communicated. Going back to our communication. And if it's not understood or not communicated, it can be very detrimental. So, knowing that each of us show up in our own versions of sarcasm, how's that played out with conflict for you?
Good, D.
Like you, I have a very smart mouth and I use sarcasm a lot. Sometimes I use it to maybe be a little more sensitive towards the issue. Sometimes I use it to provide a lighter perspective to what I'm about to say because I feel like it's heavy. Sometimes I'm just being sarcastic because I want to be a smart ass. Like I think there's different ways to approach it, but I think the commonality is you have to communicate your intent, and people who are around you, they know, oh, he said that, okay, I know what he meant. You know what I mean? Like I use the word awesome. Some people that may not know me, man, he's for that, huh? And then some people that know me, man, he full of poop. You know what I mean? Like it's what is communicated.
What about those people who don't necessarily know you and take your sarcasm as offensive? And like feelings hurt or whatever.
I would say good for them. But I would also say,
is that sarcasm?
Just a little bit, dog. Just a little bit.
But I would also say that's not the intent. Like I don't intend to hurt anybody, but I also understand and hold space for the possibility of that's going to happen. That might happen. And I think that's something that you have to be careful when you use sarcasm, that it could be offensive. It could hurt people's feelings. Again, it's not the intent. And I think you have to be careful or be aware and recognize or read the room, so to speak, or read the conversation or check the climate of the conversation so that maybe you don't use sarcasm or maybe you do. But I think you have to be aware of it. But I always try to hold space for the fact that if I do use it, it can be misconstrued.
Mo, I got a question for D. Just if you had some. D, you talked about these different areas where you use sarcasm. Do you or have you ever used it as your own personal defense mechanism of, I'm gonna use sarcasm to deflect maybe some of my own insecurities or whatever?
I don't know if they're necessarily insecurities. Maybe they are. But to answer your question, yes. I've been known and I've been one of my mentors has basically said that. He's like, you use humor, you use sarcasm to deflect. And and I use it a lot when you are trying to applaud me. Like when you say certain things, I'll deflect that. No, Like you say, you smart? No, not me. I definitely do that. I use that in that vein without question.
Yeah. And I know I have. I know I have. Yeah, no doubt. Mo?
Man, for me, I've actually tried to stay away from it because of more negativity that I've drawn than positive. So just naturally, I still will get, like, are you being sarcastic? Are you joking? Like, are you being serious? And it's like, yeah, I really am. Like, I'm not, you'll know if I'm joking with you because like, man, that was my thing. Like, I was very good at it. And it was to a point where like I've been told, like, man, that's really hurtful. Or, sometimes it's hard for me to read you. Just things like that where it's like, okay, I don't want to be hurtful. And I don't want to be someone that and when they're in my presence, they have a hard time of getting a feel of, is that genuine or is he playing around? So for me, I try to not use it at all anymore. I think it will slip sometimes just because of the habit of me doing it for so long. But yeah, I've actually tried to eliminate it within the last year or so. And if somebody asks, like, yo, are you being like, you playing around? Like, I'll say, like, nah, I'm not. Like, I'm serious. Like, for instance, somebody had some shoes on yesterday and they were different looking, but I was like, yo, those are tough. Like, I like those. He's like, yo, you serious, coach? I'm like, yeah, I do. I would wear those. And he's like, oh, okay. But it's like, if I wasn't, like, how would that make him feel? Where before I used to think that was hilarious. Like, hey, I'm kind of leaving you up there to figure it out for yourself. Am I serious? Am I not? You bought them. So you got to deal with it. Where now it's like, nah, if I say that, I really do. It really is genuine. But I try not to use it no more, man. It's not good for me. For me.
I know you got something on your mind, Jay, because I can look at you. So just you hold it 1 second and tell. I can just look at you and tell it's on your mind. But I use it as an opportunity to have maybe a deeper conversation or a conversation starter. Whether it offends you, let's talk about it. Why does that bother you? Why does that offend you? So that when we walk away from each other, I use those opportunities for you to feel like I rock with him. Cause I know it's a level of opportunity to create ingratiation. Is that a word?
It is tonight. It is tonight.
Appreciate?
Hell yeah. Shit,
I don't know if that's a word or not.
man, come on.
But I use it for a sense of
In the Jesse Jackson dictionary.
I use it for a sense of like, I want them to feel comfortable coming back so that we can interact, so that I can learn something from them, or maybe they can learn something from me, or both. But there's an opportunity for us to interact centered around sarcasm or centered around whatever. Again, to answer your question, yes, I use it for deflection, but I also use it for an opportunity to create maybe a deeper connection. If you know what I'm saying, like that, to me, that's important, to create the opportunity for conversation to be had.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's whether it's all of us being sarcastic or Mo is working on himself. I'm not so much, but
neither am I.
It is this sense of ingratiating. I'm gonna support you on your word.
I don't think that's a word. You better be careful.
It's gonna be a word this evening.
Be careful.
So, but creating this space of comfort to where I feel cool talking to him. I feel cool rapping with him like that. This dude is over there really doing a word check. It's a lot from the relational piece. And I think it also still points back to what we've talked about throughout this show, which is the communication. The more opportunities you have to communicate, either this is how I move. Like I remember when I was doing basketball camps, I told the athletes, first encounter, I'm sarcastic. If it offends you, I did not mean it, and come holler at me and let me know so I won't do it again if it offends you. But other than that, I'm going to tell you, you shouldn't have shot that because my grandmother could have blocked that. Or something along them lines, you know. So
can I say one thing? Like,
yeah.
I feel that's just humor, what you just said. Where I would say, like, it's how I view the sarcasm is like, hey man, that's a great shot. When in reality, it's like, yo, the dude's hand is right there. It was actually a terrible shot.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, like that's where it was like for me, it's like, nah, you can't do that. To me, what you just shared is, I take that as a joke.
Okay.
Maybe that is sarcasm.
No. I mean, I think both for sure. And I think it's any opportunity where somebody is going to be left trying to figure out, was that real or not? So yeah, that's and again, man, you talk about from a generational standpoint, we were all coached, parented, and taught by, quite honestly, the most sarcastic generation. Like them jokers could tell you some shit. So I think again, fellas, as we start money moments real quick, but I think it's just the conversations that we have on here aren't. I know we got a text message from one of our brethren earlier about a previous episode. Shout out Huff. But I think we having conversations that from this dynamic, coaches, fathers, players, like obviously guys have other platforms, but I think for our specific dynamic, we're doing something that is necessary, is needed, and I don't know if there's a space for it. So that's my money moment, is continuing to do what we do and provide a space. Mo, you said a couple episodes ago, and when we were in person, you said challenging people to step outside of the things that they would normally do. And I think that's what we're doing. So that's my money moment.
Yeah, so my money moment is putting to practice some of these things that we talk about. Like, I think these conversations come up a lot, especially when the differences of opinions. You know, we were talking about relationships in this episode as far as having someone that we're going to talk about it, where you're dealing with the other one that might be a little more shut off and needs more time. You know, how to handle that. But ultimately, like, my money moment is just this space and talking about this, because I gather things from each of you guys in some type of way, or even myself hearing myself say it, because there's a lot of things in here to practice. These things show up often. You know, like our lives are a constant opportunity for conflict to show up. And if we don't arm ourselves with the tools needed when they show up, we're going to be really operating with those emotions as drivers. And just from my opinion, I think that's a very dangerous way to operate, you know, opposed to having those emotions in that passenger seat. So that's my money moment. It's just this conversation and how it can be applied, putting some of this stuff into practice.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of both of what you guys said, but first and foremost, ingratiating is a word. So says Siri. She gave me a definition, and then she asked me if I wanted her to use it in a sentence. I said no, but just so you know that. But basically taking what each of you said and kind of combining it. I got a text as well from a young lady who applauded this type of situation, like what we're doing. Like, Jay, you mentioned coaches, you mentioned all of these other, I don't know if the word is an adjective, like to describe different things. And one thing I would say is men and Black men, what we're talking about, we feel it, but we're not comfortable to say it. We're not comfortable to operate in this space where I'm more and more comfortable because I know there's two other people that are just like me. They're cool with saying I love you. They're cool with crying. They're cool with hugging. They're cool with the emotional side that we as Black men are taught to distance ourselves from. And so being able to continue to provide this space, but then also maybe practicing some of the things that we talk about on here as a part of our daily lives, I think are really, really important. And it's also going noticed. There are people out there that may not publicly recommend, or they may not publicly acknowledge what we're doing or saying, but they're listening. And I think creating that space for change to happen, whether it does, that's not my job. My job, in my opinion, is to create space that allows the change to happen. Whether you change or not, that's on you. That ain't my business. So literally taking what both of you said and trying to create a space to that will accommodate the things that we talk about. I think these are things that people think. And when I say people, I mean more so people that look like us. There's a space for it to be said, heard, accepted, understood, and probably most of all appreciated. As my daddy would say, put that in your peace pipe and smoke it.
You mentioned, it's not our job to change you. It's our job to create a space that allows change to happen. My uncle told me, I had a conversation with him about 2 weeks ago, and he told me, he said, son, it's not your job to determine who and how much people drink. It's your job to be the well. Pun intended, play on the last name. I thought that was fire. That's one of them things like, shit, man, did it take you 70 years to come out with that? It is not your job to determine who or how much people drink. It's your job to be the well. So, yeah, man, I think that's what we're doing each week. I appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Somehow we're going to figure out how to have an episode without notifications, but until next time. Love y'all.